Hey, what's up guys, Rip here. So today we're returning to the content goldmine that is Dragon Age, the Veilguard. Not to beat a dead horse at this point, but there's some more stunning information coming out about the people responsible for this game. That is thanks to an article by Inverse that interviews the director of Veilguard. And we start to learn a lot about not only this director, but really the sort of mindset over at Bioware that is obsessed with identity politics. And it's very clear based on what we're going to read that those views and all of those woke ideologies bled into their work and led to Veilguard being a game dominated by identity politics. Now, before we get into this article, let's learn about the players at hand here, beginning with the author of this article, Hayes Madsen. If you look at his Twitter account, you can see here he's a video game trends writer at Inverse, also has worked with IGN and Kotaku, and the bio just checks out at this point. Bisexual he, they. Now, pronouns in bio is just like assumed it's going to happen with these games journalists, but am I the only one who finds it odd that someone in their work-related account would list their sexuality, their sexual preference? Like, why is that the first thing I need to know about you as a journalist on your work-related account? It's right next to his business email and all of his credentials. It's very strange. Like, imagine introducing yourself in real life and the first thing you tell the person you're talking to is your sexual preferences. It just seems very odd to put in a bio like this. Like, this isn't a dating website, dude. But anyways, if you search up certain terms on this guy's account, it all just makes sense. He's got the mind virus. Search up whites, and it just begins. A landslide of tweets about white people. This one saying, boy, I can't stand white people. Cue all the mad white people. Like, come on, this isn't important right now. And I'm saying that as someone whose entire career is steeped in video games. For reference, I got put on the list for a tweet I said, where I said, I can't stand white people. And it goes on and on and on. And I don't know really what this guy's race is at the end of the day, but like, dude, all this racism towards white people, it's like the call's coming from inside the house at this point. Like, come on, be for real. But anyways, let's get to this article, okay? So you can read the description here. Corinne Bush is the ruler of RPGs, conqueror of haters. The director of Dragon Age brings her personal journey to life in her games with a rich, messy tapestry of love, life, and romance. Live, laugh, love. As you can see, there's going to be a lot of self-inserting throughout Bioware. It's going to be very clear based on the sections we're going to read here, but let's just address this whole thing about the conqueror of haters. The only thing that this person has helped conquer is the downfall of Bioware. I mean, this game is a abject failure. We know Veilguard is a massive flop. It sold only 1.5 million copies according to an insider. They projected, or they were anticipating selling 10 million in the first 3 months, which they will never achieve, not just in 3 months, but forever. Their projected lifelong sales at this point are 3 million units. It's not great. But on top of that, you see this near linear slope, this decline of players over time. And what does this look like? This looks like a failed game where interest immediately died off. And also keep in mind, Bioware has already shifted its teams around. They are now working on Mass Effect, the next game from that franchise. So this is it. There's nothing else coming to Veilguard. This game is going to continue going lower and lower until it finally hits rock bottom. But let's continue on with the article right here. It says, as such, Dragon Age has always been incredibly progressive. Origins liberally featured queer romances, and Inquisition, the third game in the series, has a whole plotline about a major side character being transgender. This allows the series to explore themes of identity and belonging in ways other RPGs can't, and Veilguard certainly sticks to that idea. This reminds me of that tweet that a former Dragon Age writer shared, or a Blue Sky post they share, because that's where all of the woke people in the industry are now posting on social media. But they said that Dragon Age has always been woke. All the games were always woke. And that post blew up in his face and also in BioWare's face, even though he doesn't work there anymore, because a lot of people just didn't want to hear an open agenda being shared. And that really hurt the PR of Veilguard at the time, because when that post was made and the backlash from it ensued, that was right around the time Veilguard was getting ready to release. And it seems like people are still running with that narrative. But let's now hear from this director, Bush, from Veilguard, and this is what she says. I'm an openly queer trans woman. It shaped everything about who I am, and it's been the source of a lot of joy, a lot of difficulty, and perspective. For me personally, one of the greatest gifts about being trans is the amount of introspection it forces upon you. You spend a lot of time deeply examining who you are and why that matters. For Bush, great games offer a mirror that allows you to reflect on your own identity, preferences, and choices. When developing a game, Bush says she is thinking about the role introspection plays on people in general and how each of us go through our lives having these moments of crisis, epiphanies, and those quiet moments when you're alone. There are questions that are ripe for personalized experiences like RPGs, especially when you consider our biggest creative pillar, be who you want to be. Now, this all just makes sense. This entire section just explains Dragon Age the Veilguard and what happened with this game and all of the self-inserts and all of the wokeism and the gender identity politics that were weaved into everything. I mean, there's no other explanation than people on the team, including the director, having an obsession with identity politics and believing their role in making a great game is including these things into the story so people can be having moments of introspection. That's how you end up with scenes like this, the classic Barv scene. I mean, there's no other way to explain how this happened other than having people working on the team with minds like that. So let's just watch this cringe one more time, keeping everything we know from this article in mind.
Pounding that snake's nose, she's still holding the ruby in her other hand. Maker's panties, I was so proud. Shit. They're still holding it, sorry.
Go pull a barv.
What are you doing?
Pulling a barv.
Oh, okay.
A barv?
Tradition in the Lords of Fortune, from one of our old members, Barv. Good guy, but like most of us, his plans went sideways a lot. Bad blood among your crew's not good for morale, but there's not always time for big, drawn-out apologies. So, when one of us screws up and we know we've screwed up, we do a quick 10 to put it right. Pulling a barv.
Beautiful. I'm applauding. I have no hands on this model, but you can see I'm applauding right now. Beautiful writing, totally not a self-insert of really just a lot of characteristics of the team, but also their identity politics, making you basically, the lesson here being you got to pull a barv and start doing some push-ups to make up for the fact that you misgendered someone in this game, which is just crazy. But continuing on, there's some more here. Those specific RPGs have a lot to say about identity and personality, and that's a topic that Bush has constantly wanted to explore in her work, how games can explore autonomy and choice. Bush has been open in the past about transitioning while at Bioware and how much the studio helped her feel seen and supported. Okay, it's great that people are supporting one another at a studio, but it's very clear that all of this stuff bled into their work. Okay, it wasn't just supporting a coworker at that point. It was an ideological push that ended up in their games as well. And that's how you end up, again, with Veilguard. But here's another section, a quote here saying, "It's not lost on me, it's not lost on the team, how important these games are in people's lives," Bush says. Coming into this game, that's a tremendous feeling of accountability and of needing to be true and authentic to what these games mean to people. When it comes to authenticity in games, plenty of directors and developers talk the talk, but Bush is a rare game maker who delivers. From her time with The Sims and Dragon Age, Bush has always brought a deep sense of humanity to the game, putting characters first and never shying away from nuance or complexity in identity, relationships, and existential crises. Yo, I definitely felt a lot of nuance in the Barb scene. I felt a lot of nuance and subtlety. It was very, very clever what they were doing there, but they continue on saying, it's what makes Bush a leader in the industry and why Bioware tried so hard to carry on the Dragon Age series legacy with Veilguard, but Bush isn't finished yet. She's come a long way in the industry and has wisdom to impart and more projects to come. So yeah, this is an interesting section to me because they are hyping up this director and acting like Dragon Age was such a success and they had such an amazing contribution. At the end of the day, this game failed horribly. It's going to probably lose Bioware hundreds of millions of dollars. And we're sitting there praising the director. And why are we praising this director? Why is this reporter doing this? Well, it's obvious. It all has to do with her identity. It's kind of weird. Personally, I think it's offensive to do this to people, to coddle people just because of their identity, to treat them differently, like they can't handle accountability or criticism. They were at the helm as this ship sank, and they're getting praised and told that they're like this big, amazing success, and what they did with Veilguard was revolutionary. They failed. They helped lead this game to failure in a commercial sense, and also a lot of people believe in a creative sense as well. So I think it's a bit offensive to coddle someone just because of their identity. We know, especially with this journalist who wrote this article, if the person who directed Veilguard was an old white dude, first of all, they probably wouldn't even interview them, but the tone of all this would be completely different. They would view this as an abject failure, and they would not be coddling that person. That's why these people are gigantic hypocrites when it comes to this stuff. But let's continue on here. So they also mention, it's a very interesting section, where they talk about Baldur's Gate 3. So they say, its influence is clear to see, especially in the 2023 Game of the Year, Baldur's Gate 3, which heavily borrows from the world and party member design of Dragon Age games. That's very interesting to basically say that Baldur's Gate 3 was heavily inspired by Dragon Age. But here's the difference between Dragon Age and Baldur's Gate 3. Baldur's Gate 3 is an immense success. Right now, with an in-game player count over a year after its release, that is nearly 10 times higher than Veilguard that released a month and a half ago. This game has many, what people would consider, woke elements to it, especially in the character creation process, but that's where it ends. And then the rest is having a fun, immersive experience. That's not Veilguard. Veilguard has the virtue signaling all throughout every step of the game. That's why it rubs so many players wrong, and that's why Baldur's Gate 3 is what it is, and it's really comical, especially after the dust has already settled on Veilguard, to compare Baldur's Gate 3 to Veilguard in that sense. But let's end up this article here. This is the final section, the fight for progress and fates for Dragon Age. So the author here says, questions about BioWare's future abound, especially with the team now pivoting to focus work on Mass Effect 5, a similarly long-awaited comeback for a beloved franchise. But in the immediate future, the studio has faced a different problem, a hate campaign that put Veilguard at the center of a kind of culture war on social media, along with plenty of hateful comments towards developers and review bombing on sites like Metacritic. Oh, geez, it turns out BioWare's the victim. Who would have thought in this whole scenario? No admission of failure here. The mistakes were made, or maybe the game just wasn't very good, or maybe some of the politics in the game rubbed people the wrong way. Nope, they're just the victims of a hate campaign, just like everyone else in the industry who ends up failing, right? But anyways, they continue on. I think we should talk about it, Bush says. It's hard. I grew up in a time where I really felt like we're the ones to celebrate the games and to have these shared experiences, and that drive is still there. I think the discourse we see is the result of highly polarized times, and perhaps it's a little naive. I know it's hard when you have to ask the question, is this game for me? Do I belong here? And games are better for it when we can say, yes, you do belong here, which is hilarious because you have an entire industry constantly telling, whether it's men or white people, that they don't have a spot at the table in terms of being a part of the gaming community. So yeah, I think things end up pretty divisive and hostile, and games like Veilguard with their virtue signaling rub a lot of people the wrong way. They feel like they're being preached at, and that's divisive, and it's highly polarized, and they don't want to support the game. And, well, the proof is in the pudding because Veilguard failed. But anyways, that's going to do it for this slop article. A lot going on here, so as always, feel free to share your thoughts about today's topics in the comments section down below. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time.